This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
At Pepe Sayer, we focus on quality. So if someone comes into your restaurant and they see you're using Pepe Sayer, they know immediately that that is a quality product you've got in front of you on the table. And that comes from a decade of just doing quality butter day after day.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
It was just overwhelming support from the local community, and it was clear that everyone was really into mushrooms as much as we were.
It's a beautiful thing. Most people, especially here in Australia, haven't seen these varieties that we're growing.
This is the 7th and final episode of The Producers in Launceston, a special podcast series celebrating the food, wine and people of this very special part of Tasmania. Mr. Brown and Towns is an urban mushroom farm in the city of Launceston. Owners and best mates Michael Townsend and Fergus Brown grow exotic mushrooms in an old abattoir that's been given new life as a hub for small businesses and startups. Mushrooms are a business, but growing them also offers a lifestyle. Michael and Fergus want work to be enjoyable and to gel with the lives they're aiming to craft.
Michael Townsend is my birth name. My friends know me as T, and I guess people that know me through the business as Mr. Towns, which is quite funny. I can combine all three personalities into one. Founder of Mr. Brown and Towns Mushroom Farm. Mr. Brown is currently not with us at the moment, but a best friend, and we've started a mushroom farm here in Launceston in north of Tasmania. I run the business with my best friend, Fergus Brown.
I'm Fergus Brown. I am obviously Michael's business partner in this, and I grow mushrooms now. Full-time mushroom grower, full-time.
Mr. Brown and Towns is I think a lifestyle, really, that me and Fergus have managed to focus our attention on. It is a mushroom farm that provides the two of us with flexibility to ultimately have a healthy work-life balance, I think, and maybe approach work and family and friendship and usage of time and financial security from a way that is not as traditional as most might be, perhaps. Yeah.
If farm suggests fields and soil, you'll need to dismantle that notion to understand Mr. Brown and Towns' mushroom garden. It's indoors and urban, surrounded by ceilings and walls rather than skies and weather. Fergus takes us inside.
The mushroom farm is quite unassuming. We're in a complex called Blue Ribbon. It's kind of a bit of a mishmash of different businesses up here, but essentially it's an old abattoir. I think it was the main abattoir for the north of Tasmania. Hasn't been operating as an abattoir for, I think it's like 25, 30 years now, maybe a bit less. But and it was dormant for a long time. Brian McCready is the owner, and he bought it about 10 years ago and gradually started fixing it up, and now essentially they're going around and fixing up all the spaces, and we've got all sorts of businesses up here. There's the main one being Thermos, which is kind of like a data center / Bitcoin mine behind us. So that's a bit of a different one, and they're doing really well. And we've got Mira Miso next to us. Do miso. My partner Lauren, who is Avocado Moon Kombucha, she's just down the hall, and we actually share her cool room, which has been super handy. So she already had a cool room. So and there's many more, but essentially it's kind of like a warehouse space, and we are just one warehouse in a collection of about 15. We've got, I'd say, probably around 200 square meters of floor space, and it's very it's considered B-grade warehouse space. So if you could try and picture some aspects of an abattoir, there's various levels and landings and gutters and things where the blood would have been sprayed down and things like this. And we've kind of got one room that's essentially unusable because it's got all sorts of wacky levels. But we've essentially made most of it work. We've got the main room that we grow our mushrooms in is about 14 meters by 5 across, and it's low ceiling, and we run a fan in there, and it's pretty much the perfect environment. Well insulated. It's kind of what people do when they're trying other mushroom farms. Generally, a good practice is to use a shipping container because it's sort of custom fit, and you essentially want a small environment so you can control everything a lot easier. So we've basically got a good setup for it. So it's been a challenge, I guess, trying to figure out how to make it work, especially as the business grows. So when we started, we were doing 30 sort of blocks, we call them, of mushroom bags a week. So blocks, just this one unit of substrate that we grow mushrooms on, and now we're doing close to 400 a week. And so those growing pains, we haven't changed the space. We've still got the same amount of space. So we've probably redesigned the system, I'd say, 4 or 5 times now, and it's been a lot of moving things around, a lot of conversations about how this could work, and a lot of fantasizing about getting an extra warehouse space, which we hopefully will do in the future, so that we can have the perfect system. But it's ugly, but it works, and it's been great for us.
Michael and Fergus aren't exactly mushroom geeks from way back. It's more that they wanted to do something fun and challenging that might also be commercial. Michael explains.
I feel as though many people who go into mushroom farming perhaps will be doing it as a hobby for many years prior to taking it to restaurants and chefs and markets. But we sort of came in with the intention of trying to, instead of having a goal and conforming to that goal, perhaps trying to make the goal conform to our lives. And we were doing this individually as just, I guess, young people in our 20s exploring ways to make money that still allowed us to have time and provide us with satisfaction. And we were exploring that. And I think that's what brought us together, maybe got us sort of closer as friends in the first place. So when we sort of stumbled across the opportunity to grow mushrooms, or when that opportunity presented itself to us, and we did some more in-depth research, we thought that this might be the ideal way for us to attain, that sort of autonomy and satisfaction, but also to be challenged enough to feel like you're growing, but not too much that you're losing your hair from stress, I guess. Well, I'm bald, so I've gone through my fair dose of stress, and I guess stress and adrenaline and maybe like excitement, sort of all wrapped up into one. It was definitely a struggle at the start, and I don't think that's unique to anyone who's starting a business. And I think perhaps starting a business is maybe harder than growing mushrooms. Starting a business, especially if you've never done it before, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of pressure. So that forces you to dig deep, and especially because there was two of us, we could sort of hold each other accountable and encourage each other along. One of us might get a little bit worn out because we're both, putting in as much time as we had available aside to our jobs. But it was around the same time that we decided to live together. And so we were tree planters originally, and we'd be, out in the forest of Tasmania there, getting paid 10 cents per tree, and you didn't stop. You'd work as hard as you could until it was knock-off time. You didn't get paid for a lunch break. So if you sat down to eat a sandwich, you were missing out on sort of earnings for that day. So we both had this mentality of working hard and getting that job done, looking close to us at one step at a time, one tree at a time. And then we were able to do that simultaneously while starting the mushroom business. So we'd go to work at, say, 6:30 to 2. We'd come back. We'd go straight to the location where we were renovating to have the farm. We'd work there till 6, and then we'd go home and we'd live together for a period of about a year during this startup phase. And so that proximity to each other made us grow really close, and I think it really proved to each other that we had each other's back and that we were in it together, and that the priority was making sure that both of us were healthy, and we had a strong relationship where we were looking out for each other first before sort of our own success within the business. And so all of that sort of encouragement and that camaraderie, allowed us to have a hard day's work, but then come back at the end of it together and sort of relish in that fact that we were doing it together and we had someone by our side. Not so much Samwise Gamgee and Frodo Baggins situation, but, the two of us were just right there, 50-50. I'd see Ferg working hard. It's like who could work harder than the other person, I'd see him working hard, and that would encourage me to push harder and to get things going. And the stress comes with it, but I think we managed to navigate that just right. I probably got a little bit burnt out there at some stage. I can remember, a period of time there where it was all consuming, and Ferg was a solid rock. He's the one that would tell me, you need to take a day off, or take some time to chill out. You need to shut off. You need to switch off. And having that in a business partner, I think was quite special, and something that I reflect on for sure.
Mushrooms are an everyday product, but can still be mysterious, even magical. Fergus gives us the 101.
Mushrooms are unique in that they're not considered plants, they're not considered animals, they're in their own kingdom of fungi, and unlike plants, they don't use photosynthesis, so they don't require light. There's a bit of a misnomer. A lot of people assume that they grow in the dark. That is kind of true. I mean, they don't require light to grow, so they will grow through the night, but we actually grow our mushrooms in full spectrum lighting the whole time. It gives them the pigment, so without that light, they would be pale. And, haven't even done the experiment to find out. We just know they enjoy the light. So yeah, a mushroom. So the process, essentially, from the farmer's perspective, is that we want to create a soil for them to grow in, and then we essentially sow a seed in that soil, the mushroom seed, which is called the spawn, and it'll take anywhere from sort of 1 month to sort of 3 months, depending on the strain, for that mushroom to start to finish. So they're very, very finicky things to try and wrangle. Essentially, they're essentially untamable, but you just do the best you can to get them to come as consistently as you can. But so yeah, generally we've got mushrooms that are fully formed and ready to be harvested. So we'll go through with our crates that we harvest into and pick them right there in the fruiting room, and then take them to a commercial kitchen to trim the substrate off and box them up. And we do 2 flushes of all our mushrooms. You can get more, but they tend to diminish by at least half, if not more, each time, and we don't have the space to keep them for longer. So after the first flush, you'll wait another 2 weeks or thereabouts, and then you've got mushrooms again, probably about 40% of the first harvest, and then we've got compost after that. So the growing substrate that has produced mushrooms is now really good for the garden, essentially, and we sell our compost to people of Launceston essentially for the garden beds, and it's kind of nice to see that we don't have much waste, and that's kind of the cycle.
I was lucky enough to visit Mr. Brown and Town's mushroom paradise. It's a cornucopia of different mushroom varieties and colours, most stacked on shelves in grow bags, some in special temperature-controlled cabinets. The shapes and colours and sprouting sizes are beautiful as well as appetising. Michael talks through the varieties and how he loves to eat them.
There's a lot of mushrooms that are allowed to be grown in Tasmania, and I have listened to many conversations with experienced mushroom farmers who recommend keeping species to around three. Three mushrooms will keep your hands full. Maybe it's like similar to having kids perhaps, but me and Ferg are a little bit silly, and we like to grow about 10 or 11 different species, some medicinal, some gourmet. We have a variety of oysters, and the oysters will come in different shapes and colours. We have king oyster, the pink oyster, gold oyster, the shimmer fury or the black pearl oyster, the blue shimji, and a monster blue and a winter white. So there's a few there. And then the more sort of exotic varieties that we play around with are the lion's mane, which is becoming quite popular. We have a coral tooth, we have a chestnut, a pioppino, and a namako mushroom, and we dabble with a strain of reishi as well. So they all will provide you with something unique, and so the beautiful thing with mushrooms is that you never get bored of them, and so I'll go through phases of liking particular mushrooms at certain stages, depending on what I'm cooking and what I'm feeling like. If I'm doing salads, perhaps if it's a summertime meal, I might be working with a lighter mushroom, maybe the coral tooth. I might be doing some Buddha bowls with like a panko breadcrumbed lion's mane sort of mix. If I'm going for some curries or some stir fries or some ramens, I might just rock some really nice king oyster mushrooms or some namakos. At the moment, I am getting into the king oysters. They are a personal favourite, and it's always nice trying them. I eat mushrooms every day, but you'll go out and you'll try your own mushrooms that a chef's cooking, and you'll kind of get to taste or experience them in their peak, and then try and replicate that at home. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is it's quite a simple produce to cook at home yourself. So chefs are not going crazy with them. They're keeping them really simple, and the beautiful thing is people can do that at home and get the same experience.
When Michael and Fergus thought mushrooms might be their next business, they soon realised there was a lot to learn. Fergus explains how they gleaned enough information to get started and how ingenious hacks and workarounds have been a feature of their progress.
The mushroom growing process was obviously something that we had to learn as we went. And luckily for us, there's a lot of good information on YouTube. I think there's a bit of a trend in the States that's been going on longer than it has here, with people growing mushrooms at home and then transitioning into business scale and not so on and so forth. And there's in the day that we live in, there's a lot of people posting about it online. So we essentially learnt from YouTube, and it was awesome because we got to see how other people figured it out, and a lot of the time it was on a very low budget with only so many resources around. So these things that if we were a first grade, full-on operation would probably be all stainless steel and tens of thousands of dollars off the shelf. But you figure it out if you need to, and the things we're trying to achieve are pretty basic at the end of the day. We just want to heat something up, or we just want to mix it. And so there's always a bootstrap option for achieving those things. And so, we've been very fortunate in that both Michael and I have fathers that are very handy, particularly Michael's. He's a fitter and turner by trade, so he knows his way around a welder. He can pretty much take anything and make it into anything else. So, and also fortunately he's retired, so he'll be milling around looking for something to do, and we'll be like, "Here you go, Graham. This is what we need fixed today, mate." And off he goes, and he'll figure it out, and he'll come back in a couple of days and be like, "This is what I reckon." And sometimes we might help him build it. A lot of the time, he's already just done it himself, and sure enough, the thing will work for a decent while. If it doesn't, he'll come and fix it again. So that's been super handy. And then my dad is a similar MacGyver. Hasn't been as available, but when he has been, it's been great. But he's sort of, I guess, just through example, taught me to build a little bit. And I wasn't much of a builder before this business, but I always wanted to just know my way around the tools, and I've essentially had heaps of opportunity to do that. So I've been figuring it out as I go. They're all Frankenstein machines. They're all just figured out and thrown together and held together with not masking tape, but nails at least. We're up to the nails level, and they all do the job. They're great, and it's been fun really figuring that out. That's kind of been the most creative and rewarding part of the business. We're making money for ourselves on things that we've just built from essentially scraps, which is awesome.
Growing is one thing, but you've got to get the mushies into market. Michael picks up the tale.
The process of mushroom growing is you grow mushrooms and then you put them in a crate and you basically go door knocking. To begin with, that was how it all started. So, I can remember being quite nervous, feeling a little bit out of my depth, but being overwhelmed with an abundance of mushrooms and putting them in a box and walking through the town of Launceston, trying to go into as many restaurants and cafes that I thought would be, approachable and might be interested in the public in the product, and going in, talking to the chef, opening the box, being like, "This is what we've got. We're growing this," and they'd look at me and go, "Yes, but can you grow it consistently? Is this going to be a regular supply, or are you just going to sort of jump in and jump out?" And that was probably the biggest sort of feedback that we got, was consistency and reliability is something that sort of chefs are after, and that from early on became our sort of goal, was to maintain that consistency of product and that quality locally. And so we never bit off more than we could chew. We'd scale up very slowly. Mushrooms like to grow slow. There'll be better quality mushrooms if they're grown slowly. And so we took that approach with our clients, taking on some cafes early on. We got some great support from a few local restaurants who were interested in the product. And then it's just, like Ferg said, starting off with 20 blocks of mushrooms and then growing to 400 blocks, starting off with one or two repeat customers and then growing that to, over 30 repeat regular orders that are locked in each week. After a period of focusing on restaurant sales, we moved into the markets as well. It's a great food community here in Launceston. Recently got named a city of gastronomy, and for good reason too. There's a lot of support for local produce, and so we found that the community at the local markets were definitely one that we resonated with, and there were people there, maybe a slightly older generation, that were they'd sort of been there before us, and we resonated with them. And so when we came into the Launceston Harvest Market, I think about 2 years ago now, it was just overwhelming support from the local community, and it was clear that everyone was really into mushrooms as much as we were. So that was a nice transition to make. From there, we moved down to the Hobart Farmgate Market probably about 12 months ago now. So we've been doing the markets consistently on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, for over 12 months. And restaurant sales for, maybe 2 years.
Home cooks love the mushrooms, but chefs are another level. How did the guys find their way into restaurants? And how have those relationships driven their connection to other Tasmanian producers?
Yeah, so we had our heads down for a fair while in the early stages. We didn't really involve ourselves in social media too much on a personal scale, and so we weren't really present online. People could only talk to us or find us at the markets for nearly 12 months. And then it was, as soon as we started getting sort of encouragement from chefs who've been operating at a high standard for the majority of their career, that sort of gave us signs that we were in the right direction and we were doing something good. Nearly every day I'll wake up with a post from a supporting restaurant that uses our product that's that's showcasing it, that's showing it off, that's proud of it, whether it's a farm tour or a new dish that they've tried. And that sort of support's really encouraging. I think that's important to be proud of where we are and what we do. As far as the local community goes, it's personal relationships. It's farmer to customer relationships. We do the markets, and every time I'm on, there's a regular person that comes through who I nearly know by a first name basis now. And so you develop those relationships with them, and they love finding out about the farm and what's changing and not all the highs, but also the lows. What we're struggling with from a business perspective, how we're being affected by the climate or whether it be other factors, tourism, etc., etc. And then next to that, everyone's other producers are also supporting other producers. So, it feels as though it is community driven and it's not competition driven. And that's, I guess, the beauty of Launceston and Tasmania in general as well, is that it's big enough to spread your wings, but small enough to not feel like you're going to get lost, And so you do feel encouraged when you step out and take a risk with something and try something new. You get the support, but you don't feel like you're being, I guess, smothered by other people trying to climb the same ladder, perhaps. The feeling of consuming your produce, it does make you glow. I get friends send me photos of the mushrooms that they've particularly ordered off the menu because it's ones that they know I've grown, and there's no denying it. It feels special, and I think that there's a great amount of support from restaurants, but there's also amazing produce in Tasmania, so everyone's helping everyone and the community here as a whole, but I definitely order the mushrooms when I go to a restaurant, even though I've got them on tap.
Mr. Brown and Towns is a business built on multiple motivations and with a variety of outcomes. What is it that Fergus and Michael love about what they do?
To be honest, I love just being able to work for myself. I mean, aside from the fact that we grow mushrooms, they're awesome. I really enjoy just being able to, not that I don't have a schedule, we definitely have schedules, but having the flexibility to be able to design our own work life, that's been the most freeing part of the whole experience. So I'd put that first, and then getting to experience the joy from others around the mushrooms. I think probably Michael and I are a bit, I wouldn't say jaded, but I've seen that many mushrooms now that I'm kind of, it does wear off a little bit. I still love them, but I love more to see everybody else's reaction, because it's a beautiful thing. Most people, especially here in Australia, haven't seen these varieties that we're growing. They're quite new. So when you're running the stall at the market, hardly anyone walks by without doing a double take or coming over to ask if they can take a photo, and just blowing out at how impressive these things are. So joy for the work-life balance, and joy that I get to grow such interesting and beautiful and delicious produce.
I knew I wasn't going to come up with the next PayPal. And I feel like this is the next best thing for me. I feel challenged. I also feel responsible. It grounds me. Prior to this commitment, I didn't have much in the scheme of responsibility. I was still sort of figuring out and exploring what that looked like. But I do believe that within this farm, we've been able to, through this business, we've been able to create a sustainable work-life balance, that will only improve. And it allows us to focus on the work culture. It allows us to focus on the environment that is work. It's inevitable that we will have to work and will continue to work for a large part of our lives. And so I want that to be as enjoyable as possible. I want to be able to listen to the music that I like whilst working. I want to be able to talk to the people whose company I really enjoy, So we have our friends working with us, and it's like being at school again. There's so much play at school. You were doing stuff, but it was enjoyable due to the company that you were in. And so, there's a period there where I remember looking at my bed before going to sleep and just being really excited to get out of it in the morning and get back to the farm. That has definitely worn off a little bit. That was the initial stages, but being at work and being in that environment is so fulfilling, and it just provides me with a lot of happiness, really, every day.
A key food experience in Launceston is Saturday's Harvest Market. Mr. Brown and Town's stall is a highlight, always with a beautiful mushroom display and plenty of time to chat about what's on offer and what might be done with it. It's a testament to the business started and run by two mates. A great product, presented to market with joy and aplomb. Mr. Brown and Towns is about mushrooms, but it's also about enterprise, friendship, creativity, and community. This was the last episode of The Producers in Launceston, a special podcast series that we have absolutely loved making, celebrating the food, wine, and people of northern Tasmania. These podcasts are a partnership with Agricultured, a food showcase of this beautiful and rich region. Listen to all of the Producers in Launceston podcasts on the Deep in the Weeds podcast network.